I'm Brandon, and this is Video Game History, a show where I look back on certain franchises of video games and retrospectively review them. As we continue to take a look at Cartoon Network's history in video games, we come to the video game debut of the Powerpuff Girls. The Powerpuff Girls' Bad Mojo Jojo for the Game Boy Color was the first in a trio of games with Paint Townsville Green and Battle Hymn, designed to be something similar to how the two different versions of Pokemon games work. Each of the games follow a different girl, with this one focusing on Blossom's adventures. As I mentioned in my Dexter's Laboratory Robot Rampage review, Bad Mojo Jojo was released on the same date, November 14, 2000, which is kinda strange. I mean, both games are targeting the same audience, so wouldn't spreading their releases apart help maximize sales? Kids don't have money, so they're relying on parents to buy their kids the games, so it doesn't seem smart to be releasing games on the same day. Bad Mojo Jojo, along with the two other games in the trio, were developed by Sonari Interactive, and from looking at the reviews, I'm expecting this game to suck hard. It received a 5 out of 10 from IGN, which isn't terrible, but it also received a 3.2 out of 10 from GameSpot, so I don't exactly have faith in this game. However, I'm not just going to take their word for it, so I'm going to jump in and see what the Powerpuff Girls video game debut is all about. Upon starting the game up, you're greeted to a chiptune version of the theme song, which is okay I guess, if not a little short. However, you're not going to be spending much time here, so it doesn't really matter. The first thing that caught my eye on the menu is that there are trading cards and secret codes in this game. Both of these aspects play into the connected version thing that they have going on, with some trading cards and secret codes only able to be found exclusively in a particular version. The secret codes unlock a number of different things, like secret levels, trading cards, the ability to play as different characters such as Bubbles, the Mayor of Townsville, and Rowdy Rough Boy Butch, as well as cheat codes for unlimited flying and lives. From what I could gather, some of these codes were broadcast on Cartoon Network or could be obtained at places like Best Buy. It's actually kinda surreal to fly around levels as the Mayor of Townsville, although it's extremely disappointing that every character not only controls exactly the same, but they all have the same special attack. But now onto the actual game. The story of Bad Mojo Jojo is centered around the titular character once again causing mayhem in Townsville, and for some unknown reason it's up to Blossom to stop him by herself. There's no explanation for where Buttercup and Bubbles are, so I'm going to assume that all three of these linked games are meant to take place at the same time. In the first level, Mojo Jojo is broken into Professor Utonium's lab to try and create weapons. My first impression upon being dropped into the game is that the graphics kinda suck, especially after playing Robot Rampage, which looks amazing in comparison. The environments just seem bland and uninspiring, and it turned me off from the start. You're also hit right away with some very bad controls. Movement is incredibly floaty, both when walking and flying, which can be performed by holding the up button, but can only be used for a limited time before your meter depletes, while A is your punch button, and B shoots your special projectile attack, which freezes enemies. For some reason the developers decided it would be a good idea to have a cooldown time after you've used the punch, something that makes the combat feel terrible. When watching the show, the girls are nimble and quick, but the combat here makes Blossom feel stiff and robotic, and it honestly feels like she's not a very good fighter. As a result of this cooldown time between punches, combat consists of you gliding back and forth a couple of times while throwing punches, as every enemy annoyingly takes 2 hits to kill. Each stage is littered with a varying amount of collectibles for you to find, as well as trading cards, which gives you something else to be occupied with rather than just the mundane combat. Now the first enemy I came across confused me. What is this? A mummy? I guess it kind of looks like a jail thug in prison clothing. But then bam! A fucking guy with a gun comes out of nowhere! Shit is starting to get serious now. The rest of the enemies are even more confusing. Why is there a flying jellyfish? Seriously, what is up with these enemies? Why are there flying demon creatures? My memory might be bad, but I really don't remember these enemies playing any part in the Powerpuff Girls. The flying jellyfish and demons are also incredibly annoying to kill, as they shoot extremely accurate projectiles while you have to combine the awful combat with the awful floaty flying to try and bring them down. To power your special attack, you pick up vials of Chemical X around levels. Blossom's special attack is Ice Breath. However, as I mentioned, every character's special attack is some sort of freeze power, which is lame. Freezing enemies allows you to get in one free hit. However, this is basically pointless as you can get in a free hit 99% of the time without needing to freeze them. You're better off saving the power for the end of level boss battles. The limited flying gets old quickly. It also doesn't help that pretty much every 5 steps you take you run into a collectible, resulting in the top portion of the screen being blocked to update your collectible total. This results in you being unable to tell how much is left in your meter, and if you get a collectible while in one of the levels set in the sky, you better hope you're not hovering over a bottomless pit. Speaking of dying, once you lose a life you lose all the collectibles you had and must start collecting all over again. This is incredibly dumb, as at very seldom moments there are checkpoints, so you often have to get hundreds of collectibles all over again. You'll come across random civilians in need of saving throughout levels, which is particularly weird when the first level is set inside your own house. Why are there civilians in here? When you reach the end of the first level, you are faced with a boss battle against Mojo Jojo, which is okay. It's kind of repetitive and easy, but by this game's standards, it's easily the best thing that's happened so far. You'll have other battles with classic villains like Princess Morbucks and Roach Coach, but for the most part you just battle against Mojo Jojo in basically the exact same fight. After the game's introductory level, you are smacked in the face with a gigantic increase in collectibles. The second level has 171 collectibles to find, which is about 100 more than the first level. What I also found out the more I played is that the game actually becomes much easier and more enjoyable if you just ignore the collectibles and fly right by the enemies, because more often than not, trying to get collectibles and engaging with enemies just results in you unnecessarily losing health. There's no real reason compelling you to fight enemies or grab collectibles outside of raising your completion percentage for the level, as you don't get upgrades or any tangible use for collectibles. Honestly, who has the patience and willpower to try and collect almost 200 collectibles, knowing that in an instant you could die and have to start from scratch? Because of this, the game basically ends up consisting of just running through levels and finding the area where the boss is. Later levels introduce more platforming elements, but they aren't fun, mainly because of the limited flying. The platforming often involves you just flying off into the abyss and hoping a platform is near you. The flying being so floaty and imprecise also becomes a headache for things such as the Mojo Jojo boss battle. Trying to dodge the blades of the helicopter, which damages you, is way harder than it should be, all thanks to you being barely able to control Blossom competently with the D-pad. The game also from time to time throws random required objectives at you. For example, in the subway level I needed to rescue the mayor, something that was explained in the cutscene before the level started. I located the area where clearly the mayor was supposed to be, but it was empty. I then spent the next 15 minutes flying around the level until I randomly found the maintenance key. Why did I need this key? The mayor wasn't in a maintenance room that needed a key. I was literally standing in that room fine before I grabbed the key. It just makes no sense whatsoever why they forced this arbitrary task onto me. On completion of the final level, you were given a password, which I assumed would be used in the other games. This turned out to be true, as upon further inspection I found out that it unlocks the Utonium Chateau level in Paint the Townsville Green and Battle Him. While on the subject of secret codes, there are 2 secret levels that can be unlocked, Pokeoak School and Townsville Art Museum. These 2 levels open up a short news story that focuses on the Rowdy Rough Boys causing trouble, and after beating both secret levels, a 3rd secret level opens up called Townsville Skies, where the final boss battle takes place. The Rowdy Rough Boys could have provided for some great diversity in the boss battles, however I ended up finding an exploit that just completely ruins them. You see, if you hit them once, it's game over. By the time they recover from one hit, you're able to hit them again with another attack before they even have the chance to move out of the way or fire off an attack of their own, making the boss battles so easy. I also had one of the Rowdy Rough Boys fly off in one of the fights and literally disappear completely, which was very bizarre. I guess he didn't want to fight me? The secret levels do add an element of variety as well as adding length to what is a short game, however I'm not sure that's a good thing as the gameplay is so dull and repetitive.
I, Mojo Jojo, have found the secret of the Powerpuff Girls' power. Secret discovered by me. It's Kellogg's new Powerpuff Girls cereal. Little sweet Power Pack clusters fizz sweetly in my mouth and give me the strength of the Powerpuff Girls.
Give us back our cereal, Mojo Jojo!
Oh, Mojo. Even Kellogg's new Powerpuff Girls cereal can't make you a superhero, but it is the only cereal to pack the punch of the Powerpuff Girls. It's part of this complete breakfast and only around for a limited time.
There's no nice way to say it. The Powerpuff Girls Bad Mojo Jojo is just a bad game. Nothing about this game is fun. The controls, combat, flying, platforming and collectibles all flat out suck. And the one aspect that could have been redeeming, the boss battles, just becomes repetitive, too easy to exploit, and actually one of the easiest parts of the game. To me, this just seems like a shameless attempt to exploit kids and fans of the Powerpuff Girls. Why did they think it was necessary to split the Powerpuff Girls into 3 separate games? Without spoiling my future reviews of Paint the Townsville Green and Battle Him, they are essentially identical games with almost identical flaws. Each game's length is like 2 hours long, which combined together would have at least made a 6-hour game. Instead of going with 3 different campaigns in one game, they decided to greedily split them up under the guise of some dumb trading card gimmick. I guarantee you there's not a single kid out there that gave a fuck about the trading cards in these games. In summary, I wouldn't even recommend you playing this even if you're a die-hard Powerpuff Girls fan. It's that bad.